Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. In this video I'll be going through this coordinate geometry paper 4 style question. So we're given 2 points here, A and B, and immediately we're asked to find the midpoint of this line segment AB, and the formula for a midpoint of AB is x1 plus x2 over 2, where x1 and x2 are the two different x coordinates. So the x coordinate of A and the x coordinate of B, and the same for the y coordinate. So essentially what we're doing here is we're finding the midpoint of the x coordinates and the y coordinates, and after combining them we'll be obtaining the midpoint for the line segment as a whole. So if we implement this formula here, we get -3 plus 2 over 2, because we've got -3 here for the x coordinate of A, and 2 here for the x coordinate of B, so it goes here. And for the same for the y coordinates, so 8 plus, now this is a -2, so 8 plus -2 over 2, and this gives us -3 plus 2 over 2, which is negative 1/2, and 8 plus -2 is 6, and 6 over 2 is 3. So therefore the midpoint of the line segment AB is -1/2, 3. So if you want a visual explanation of this, this is essentially what we're doing. If we have the points on a graph like this, let's just say -3, 8. This is point A, -3, 8, and point B is 2, -2, so it'd be somewhere around here. This is point B, and we have this line segment, and to find the midpoint of this, we just have to find the middle of the two x coordinates. So let me just draw this dotted line going down here, and we see that this is the distance between the 2 points in terms of the x coordinates. So in order to find the midpoint, we must find the exact middle of the x coordinate, which is right here, the midpoint between the x coordinates. And if we trace this all the way up, we get to point here. And the same thing for the y. The distance between the y coordinates of the 2 points is this right here, and then the center of these y coordinates. So essentially what we're doing is we're finding the mean value of the x coordinates and y coordinates, because after finding the mean value, what you see here is that the midpoints of the x and y coordinates intersect at one point after you trace them, and they will intersect at the midpoint of the line segment AB. So essentially what we're doing here is just calculating the mean value, the average of the x coordinates of the x coordinates of A and B, and the y coordinates of A and B. So that's all we're doing to find the midpoint. So that's part A done. Now part B, find the equation of the line through A and B. Give your answer in the form y equals mx plus c. So what we first need to do is we need to calculate m. M is the gradient. So to find the gradient m, it's equal to rise over run, where rise is the change in the y coordinate. So essentially what rise is, if we look back to this diagram here, rise would be this green distance right here, which is the difference in the y coordinates of the 2 points. So it's y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. So now we could choose any of these points as y1 and x1. Let's just for the sake of simplicity say that this is x1 and this is x1 and y1. So A has coordinates x1, y1, and B has coordinates x2, y2. So now if we apply this formula, y1 minus y2, we get 8, that's y1 from A, minus y2. y2 is negative 2. And now for the same for the x, so x is negative 3 minus the x2, which is 2. And this goes to 10 over negative 5, which can be simplified to negative 2. Therefore, the gradient of this line segment is negative 2, AB is negative 2. So now we've got m as equal to negative 2. What we can do is substitute this back into the original y equals mx plus c. So we get y equals negative 2 x plus c. All we're doing here is substituting in this value that we calculated for the gradient back into the y equals mx plus c form. And now that we have this, we can substitute any of these initial coordinates, either a or b, into this equation. For example, let's say we choose a to substitute. So y equals to negative 2x plus c. Therefore, the y coordinate of a, which is 8, must be equal to negative 2 multiplied by the x coordinate of a, which is negative 3, plus c. And from this, you can see we can easily calculate c. C from this would be 8 minus 6, which is 2. Because 8 is equal to 6 plus c, and therefore c is equal to 2. We could also do this. This would be for substituting in for the coordinates of point A. We could also do the same for point B. So if we take this, we see point B has x coordinate 2 and y coordinate negative 2. So therefore, negative 2 equals to negative 2 multiplied by 2 plus c. So negative 2, the y coordinate of B, negative 2, the y coordinate of B, and then this negative 2 right here is the gradient m that we have calculated. And then this 2 that we've got here is just the x coordinate of point B. And then from this we see that negative 2 is equal to negative 4 plus c. And again, we obtain c is equal to 2 as our final answer. We see in both cases, it doesn't matter if we substitute in the points x coordinates and y coordinates from point A or from point B, we'll get the same answer as c is equal to 2. So now that we have c equals to 2, we can substitute this back into y equals mx plus c. And therefore our final equation of the line through A and B is equal to y is equal to negative 2x plus 2. C is this y-intercept. And let's just put a box around that. So y is equal to negative 2x plus 2 is the solution for part B of the question. So now if we move on to part C of the question. Another line is parallel to AB and passes through the point 0, 7. So when a line is parallel, it will always have the same gradient. So if we refer back to this initial diagram here, a parallel line would look something like this. And as you can see, both lines would have the same gradient. So therefore, we can write y is equal to negative 2x plus c for this new line, since we know that the gradients of both lines will be the same, negative 2. And now all we have to do is calculate c, the y-intercept for this new line. However, we're simply given this point 0, 7, which means that this line will look something like this, where this point right here is 0,7. And from this, we can just clearly see that they've given us the y coordinate. The y-intercept is just 7. The y-intercept is just 7. So therefore, we can just replace c with 7, because they've just given it to us here clearly. So it's just y is equal to negative 2x plus 7. 7 is the y intercept coordinate. And if you want concrete proof, you can do that too. The same thing we do is we substitute the y value into the y equals negative 2x plus c. So you get 7 is equal to negative 2 multiplied by 0. And then we substitute that into the x value. So negative 2 multiplied by 0 plus c. And negative 2 multiplied by 0 is just 0. So we see that 7 is equal to c. And that's exactly what we did here, by just knowing that 0,7 is the y-intercept. But it is good to just show this line of working right here just to the examiner, just so that they know that you know what you're doing with this question. So it's just good to write that down, and we'll get the same answer anyway, of y is equal to negative 2x plus 7. So that's the equation of the parallel line to AB. So now we have perpendicular lines. So firstly, before we start, a fact about perpendicular lines is that if we have M1, let's say M1 is the gradient of AB that we calculated already of 2. M1 multiplied by the gradient of this new line that we're finding, this perpendicular line, the products of these is equal to negative 1. That's a fact that you should know for the IGCSE course. It's that the two gradients of two perpendicular lines are negative reciprocals of each other. Negative reciprocals. And what that means, negative reciprocals, is just a fancy way of saying their products of gradients will be equal to negative 1. Okay, so now we set M1 to be equal to the gradient of AB. And we know that the gradient of AB here is negative 2. Therefore, negative 2 multiplied by M2 is equal to negative 1. M2 is the gradient of this new line. And therefore, M2 is equal to, divide both sides by negative 2. So M2 is equal to negative 1 over negative 2, which is just 1 over 2. So the gradient of the perpendicular line to AB is 1 over 2. So now we have y is equal to 1/2 x plus c. Now we do the same thing to find c. We take the coordinates that they've given us of this new perpendicular line, the coordinates that it passes through, and then we take the y coordinate firstly, which is 5. So we put that into here. So we get that 5 is equal to 1/2 multiplied by now we take the x coordinate. The x coordinate is 1. So 5 is equal to 1/2 multiplied by 1 plus c. Therefore 5 is equal to 1/2 plus c, and c is equal to 9 over 2. C is equal to 5 minus 1 over 2, and 5 minus 1 over 2 is 9 over 2. Therefore, now what we do is we take this c value that we calculated, the y-intercept of this perpendicular line, and we plug it back into y equals 1/2 x plus c. And we get the final equation of the perpendicular line as y equals 1/2 x plus 9 over 2. But we're not done there, because it says to give the answer in the form ax plus by plus c equals 0. And a, b, and c have to be integers. And currently, we don't have integers. So what we do to make this all to integer is multiply both sides by 2. And we get 2y is equal to x plus 9. But we need to put all of them on the same side to be equal to 0. So therefore, if we move 2y over here, we get that x minus 2y, so subtracting 2y from both sides, x minus 2y plus 9 is equal to 0. So this, and that is the equation of the final perpendicular line to AB, and this is just a rearranged form of y equals to 1/2 x plus 9 over 2. And this is a form that you'll see much more often if you continue on to doing IGCSE additional maths. This is a form that is used more often than y equals mx plus c. So, but other than that, that's the final answer for this part D question. X minus 2y plus 9 is equal to 0. As you can see, we're given in the form ax plus by plus c equals to 0. And if we want to be really concrete, we could write down the values of a, b, and c, which is the these values here. So a, b, and c. You don't have to do this for the exam, but it's just to show your understanding. So we see that a is equal to 1, since 1 multiplied by x is just x. We have no coefficient in front of x, so a is 1. And b is equal to negative 2, because we're multiplying y by negative 2. And finally, c is equal to 9. C is just the y-intercept multiplied by 2 over here. So we can also put that in, but that's not necessary for the course. You could just leave this answer here, x minus 2y plus 9 equals 0. That's perfectly fine. But it's just to show your understanding. So a is equal to 1, b is equal to negative 2, and c is equal to 9. And there you go. You've answered this question thoroughly. You've given the equation of the line in this form, and it's perpendicular. So if you go back to this graph, the line would look something like this. It would be perpendicular to the line AB. So perpendicular, and it would pass through the point 1, 5. And this is the line that we found in part D. And it would look something like this on the graph if you drew it. But yeah, that's all for coordinate geometry, IGCSE maths. This is probably one of the hardest questions you'll get for coordinate geometry in paper 4, because it includes everything from parallel lines to perpendicular lines to midpoints. And yeah, I hope this video was helpful. If it was, please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.